Hello and welcome back to our channel on pet parent education, especially for dog grooming. My name is Mary. I am a professional dog groomer currently located at Pet Suites in Harriman, Utah. And today we are talking all about nails and dog nails in particular, obviously. How often we need to get them trimmed, why we need to trim them, things that trimming nails can prevent, and the differences in trimming nails. Alright, so I'm hoping this video will be on the shorter side. I do already have 2 segments filmed. We actually just went on vacation and I picked my girls up literally yesterday from my work. And when I picked them up, I gave them a bath and did their nails. And at the same time, I filmed me doing their nails so that we could give a little more information and kind of some hands-on experience for you guys. But anyways, we're just gonna hop right on into it to try to keep this video a little bit shorter. Hopefully 30 minutes or less is my goal. Okay, but anyways, so let's get started. Why do we need to trim our dog's nails? A lot of people kind of think of it, I feel like, in the same way as brushing your dog's teeth. Because dogs descended from wolves and there's nobody to cut the wolves' nails or brush the wolves' teeth. Or at least that was kind of how I thought of it as a first-time pet parent way back when I was really young. But trimming your dog's nails is actually really, really important. So wolves naturally grind their nails down on different surfaces that they walk on. They scratch things kind of like cats. It helps keep them at a reasonable, reasonable length. But with our canine companions, our little dogs, they generally don't do that. We don't like them scratching things. And unless you are walking them very consistently on asphalt or sidewalk, and generally this is only for our bigger dogs, they generally do not grind their nails down naturally. And so we have to trim them ourselves. So why we trim nails, number one is health reasons. Trimming a nail and keeping their nails short can actually prevent foot and leg, or paw and leg, I guess I should say, injuries and different diseases, not really diseases, but like arthritis and stuff in the future. Dogs can actually start to develop arthritis a little bit earlier on if their nails are left extremely long. And they'll get paw issues because instead of walking on more of a flat paw, their toes get raised up when their nails are curling to the point where they're basically kind of walking on their nails. And because their foot or their paw was not designed this way, kind of like how our feet are not operated to, we don't walk on our curly toes or on our tippy toes, it can cause issues. And one of them is arthritis as they get older, especially if it's, a long-term, longer nail. So we do want to keep those shorter for preventing, health issues in the future. Another reason and health issue is broken nails. The nail can actually break if it is kept too long, especially if weird pressure is put on it. We actually have a kind of like a rule that we have in our salon for safety issues, and that is if the nails are super long, we do have to trim them before we even put them in a kennel. That's because our kennels have grates. That way, if they have an accident or go to the bathroom, it goes through down to the floor below, and it doesn't get on your dog. But nails can get caught in these grates and they can break. The same as if your dog's walking and there's like a weird rock and it steps on it, the nail can break if certain pressure is put on it. And if it breaks low enough, that's not an issue, but a lot of times the nail will break very high up when it is going into the quick. The quick, I'll talk a little bit more about this. It's a vein that runs through your dog's nail, or at least part of it, and it will bleed if it is exposed or cut. So we don't want nails to break. Broken nails can also be very sharp and pointy, and so it makes scratching worse. Nails can also chip off, like parts of it can chip off if left very long, and that's not very good either. Just like our human nails, we don't like chips in nails or broken nails all the way down into the bed. It's the same thing with our dogs. And also if it's like a bad enough broken nail or chip, you might have to take them into the vet for them to take care of it if it can't be stopped with quick stop, as we call it, at your local groomer shop. Yes, and then of course, if you don't notice it and your dog is like, running through a bunch of stuff, it could also cause infection, and we don't want that. Okay, the other reason why we need to cut our dog's nails, or why we want to, is comfort, the comfort of your dog. Once again, we don't want them walking kind of like this. We want them walking on flat paws. It's a lot more comfortable. There's a lot less pressure on certain bones and joints if they are walking properly on a flat paw. We don't want them, again, walking kind of like, a scaredy cat almost, or with claws, as they can put pressure on different parts and be very, very uncomfortable for your dog. Another reason is less scratching. We don't like dogs jumping up and scratching, especially right now because my family has a baby. Also, occasionally my mom and dad will come over, and they're not old, but they're getting older, and scratching, like in general, if you have seniors, scratching their skin is not very good because sometimes their skin becomes like paper thin, and a little scratch can easily, turn into a cut, and we don't want to injure our lovely seniors. So also, if you are a senior, that's another reason you do want your dog's nails to be trimmed very often. Less scratching and less injury to our human friends. Also, if you have leather couches or wood floors, and you want to, especially if you're renting and you want to keep your wood floors nice, so you don't get, fined that lovely safety deposit fee, you do want to keep your dog's nails trimmed so that they don't scratch the wood floors as often. Or if you have, like I said, leather couches, that's another area. If your pets are allowed on there, they can get scratched very easily. We actually have 2 leather chairs. Well, one's fake leather, but one is real leather. And it's an extremely old leather chair. We were gifted it from my parents because they were getting rid of it. But we call it Chani's chair because Chani will sit in it all the time, and if you sit in it, she'll immediately jump up to claim it as hers. But because we have kept our dog's nails short, it has very minimal scratching, which is good because then we can keep it for a longer time and it stays nicer and looks nicer. Obviously, just because a chair is scratched doesn't mean you have to get rid of it. My mom is an interior designer, and my Nana was as well, and so we're kind of into that stuff as a family. We like our furniture to be kept nice. But yeah, that's something that some people are very concerned about, is keeping, especially if it's an expensive leather item, keeping that nice. That's another reason to do nails. So now that we know about why we need to trim our dog's nails, we're going to talk about the differences in nails, because there are a couple, and we'll talk about the anatomy in here as well. There's a couple different, I guess, colors of nails, types of nails is what I call them in the video that I already filmed. But we have clear nails and blacker colored nails. And the reason I'm saying blacker colored, it's not because I'm trying to be racist, it's because sometimes the nails are more of like a dark brown color. It depends on the breed of the dog. For example, Irulin right now, her nails are kind of like a tan color. You can't see through them even when they're clean, so they're not clear, but they're not, all the way to that dark black color that we see. Sometimes puppies do have weird colored nails, and then as they get older, they will kind of turn more to one or the other. If you have a mixed breed as well, I point this out when I will show my clip of Chani. Sometimes they'll have like half and half nails. Chani has a couple of those. And so it's just good to kind of know the differences when trimming them. So I guess first we'll go over more of the anatomy, and then I can go over quickly the differences, and then I'll show my clips so you can see the differences in person. But a dog nail, obviously, you can kind of think of it like our human nails, except for it's rounded. So on our human nail, right, we have the nail bed right here, and if you cut into it, it will bleed because that is where the nail is essentially attaching to your skin. A dog nail is basically the same, except the nail covers all the way around, and then it grows out into a point. So essentially where this nail bed is, you can think of it as, even though they do also have an actual nail bed where the nail connects to the skin. But we can think about it like this just to make it a little bit easier and make more sense. But where this nail bed is, there is, instead of it being skin, there is a vein essentially that runs through part of your dog's nail, and that is called the quick. And so you'll hear a lot of groomers say, oh, we quicked your dog, or, you know, we have quick stop. That is referring to that vein running through your dog's nail. It does not go all the way to the end of your dog's nail. It goes a little further out. And generally, if your dog has clear nails, as I will show in the video clip with Chani, you can see the pink where the vein is running through. Sometimes it can be a little deceiving though, which I will go over, but you can see the vein in your dog's nail. If your dog has darker nails or black nails, then you can't really see that. Actually, you can't see it at all because the nail, the actual hard nail covering is obstructing your view of the quick. That doesn't mean that you can't trim them at home and you have to bring in a new groomer. You can still trim them at home. But anyway, so a lot of pet parents, especially newer ones that don't know anything about dogs, think that you can trim the nail almost all the way up to the nail bed, kind of like we can with our human nails. We can trim them all the way. I like my nails nice and short for my job. It makes it easier. I know some people like longer nails, but we can trim them all the way up to the nail bed and be just fine. That's the same with your dog's nails. You can trim them all the way to the quick, which again, that's deceiving because some people think that you can trim them up to where their nail hits their foot, but that is not correct because your dog will bleed and it will not be good and they will be in pain, and then they probably will hate anyone touching their paws ever again. So don't do that. Don't trim it all the way, you know, at the nail bed. Make sure that you are trimming it just a little bit at a time to the quick. There are a couple of things we'll talk about later where sometimes vets will purposefully quick a dog. That's very rare though, but we'll talk about that a little bit later when we're going over the differences of nail trimming. So anyways, that is the anatomy of a dog's nail. You have the vein running through, which is the quick. You don't want to cut it or it will bleed, and a lot of times dogs really don't like that. Just as if, you know, you're going to a salon to get your manicure done and they cut your nail way too short, it doesn't feel good and it hurts, especially if you're bleeding everywhere. So yes, that we don't want to quick our dog's nails. But yes, there are, like I said, the two different colored nails, clear and then black or darker nails. I should call it that. So there are those two types of nails. Clear ones, you can see the quick. They're a little bit easier to trim at home and just in general. And then you have, although sometimes they can be deceiving, and then you have your black or darker colored nails, and those ones you cannot see the quick in. And like I said, sometimes there is a mix or an overlap, and I will go into some of those differences in our clip with Chani now. Hello and welcome back. Sorry for the odd angle, but this is the best one that I could get. So we will be cutting back and forth between editing me and working me. So I'm here with Chani. This is her rear end. Usually working on a dog's back foot is actually the easier one, so that's why I'm on her back paw. She does fine with both, but it's always just a little easier with the back paw. So today we are talking about nails, as I have said before. Really there are two types of nails, and I'll go over kind of the differences between the two, and then we will go into the actual nail trimming. So Chani has both types or colors of nails because she is a mixed breed. Most of our mixed breeds have both types of nails. Let's see if I can bring her a little closer. So you can see here she has black nails right here, and then also the clear or white nails. And then sometimes you can have a little bit of a like mixed nail, sort of say. She has one right here. It's like white on one side, but then black on the other. Same with this one right here, white on one side and black on the other side. So there are a couple different versions of them, and then yeah, you can get funny combinations. So black nails are generally a little bit trickier to trim, trickier in quotes, and that's because you have to actually know what the quick feels like and looks like in a different sense than the clear nails. You still can trim them pretty easily. You just want to be taking a little bit off at a time, as always. But the quick, essentially what you're going to see is there is going to be Let's see, Chinese nails are pretty short. Let's see if I can get there. There we go. So it's a little bit harder to see here. Let's see if my camera can focus. Hold on. There we go. All right, so you can see this part right here is the flat part that I just cut. And you can see that there is some white part up here. That is not the quick. You're going to be looking for, there is also a little bit of like a lighter color on the inside, and then it goes back to dark. You want to look for that second dark like little ring on the inside, and that is your quick, and that's when you will stop cutting. For the clear nails, it's a lot easier because you can see the pink inside, especially when they're clean. Sometimes if they're dirty, you'll have a harder time. If that's the case, just give your dog's paw a quick wash and you'll be able to see it. So again, we can just, and these nails are a little more easy. You can just cut right up to where you see the quick. Generally, I would back off just a little bit because sometimes it can look a little funky. But there we have, you can see the kind of pink. Let me get it to focus again. Oh, Chatty, nope, I need your paw. You're doing so good, I know. Okay. Focus again, camera. There we go, everybody focus. So there you can see the little bit of the fleshy inside that I cut away to reveal, and that is the quick. When you are cutting nails, you do want it to be at a slight angle, about a 45-degree angle, and that just helps you stay away from the quick a little easier, but also getting them as short as possible. All right, welcome back from our clip with Chani. So now we know the differences in the different colors of nails and how to find the quick on each of them. Again, with the clear one, you can cut close to the quick, and then you can just do a little bit at a time until you kind of see that more pinky fleshy part. With our darker color nails, it is a little bit harder. Again, you just want to go a little bit at a time until you see there'll be a white, it'll be the black nail and then a little bit of a white ring, and then the black will be again in the center. That is the quick, and you want to stop when you see that. Also, if you are unsure, you can always bring your dog into a groomer and have them trim the nails for you. You can kind of take note of about where and like what length the nails are. Generally, unless you are going like months and months and months without trimming your dog's nails, the quick will stay in about the same place. So then you can, again, trim the nails at home, save a little bit of money, and you just kind of take note of where they are and trim them to about that same length at home. Yeah, and that is just an easy way of doing it. Sometimes, actually, if we have a dog where it is a little confusing as to where their quick is, and maybe they're pulling a little bit more when we're trying to trim them, sometimes we will grind down one nail, and I'll talk about the differences for that in a second, but we'll grind a nail down, kind of see how long that one is, and then we'll cut the other nails closer to that length. And generally that is a good rule of thumb too. Okay, now we're going to talk about how to trim our nails. So there are two different types, and again, I will go more into this and show you what each one looks like in a clip with Chani after this. We have nail trimming, which is with our traditional nail clippers or trimmers, whatever you want to call them. And then we have our nail grinding, which usually it's called a grinder or a Dremel. I grew up in a salon with it being called just a nail grinder, but I know a lot of people do call it nail Dremels. They are used interchangeably. Essentially, nail grinding is you are filing the nail down. You do have more control because you can see as you are grinding the nail down, you can see like where the quick is and stop very quickly. Whereas with nail trimming, you are just taking a little bit off at a time unless you know exactly where the quick is, which hardly is the case. Taking a little bit off at a time until you see the quick. It's very easy to quick a dog with nail trimming, whereas with nail grinding, it is a lot harder. Dogs also, a lot of them have a preference, and a lot of pet parents don't get this very often. But again, you can think of it with our finger. The nail trimming, there is a pinch, essentially, is what the dog is feeling on their nail, especially when it gets closer to that quick. They are feeling a pinch as the cutter is closing, and for some dogs, they really don't like that, and it kind of scares them. It doesn't necessarily hurt unless you have gone too far and are about to quick them, but it doesn't feel comfortable. I mean, you can think if, you take a chip clip or a clip of some sort and put it on your finger, it doesn't feel very good. Doesn't necessarily hurt, not really, but it also doesn't feel good. And if you can think of your dog, especially if you don't play with their paws a lot or touch their paws a lot at home, then that is going to kind of freak them out a little bit. And we don't want that. But that is why a lot of dogs do not like nail trimming. However, there are dogs that prefer nail trimming. And the reason for that is nail grinding is more of just a light vibration on their nails. My Dremel currently, you'll see in the clip, is very loud. It's because it needs a really good cleaning. Because I use my nail grinders so often, the nail dust gets kind of caked in it, and occasionally I do have to clean it or get a new one. Luckily, they're not too expensive of a tool. But mine right now is very loud because it needs a good cleaning, which I will hopefully have time to do this week. But for most dogs, it's not the noise that is the issue. It's just the light vibration. Some dogs really hate that and they don't love it. And so for them, especially if they are starting to exhibit signs of stress or starting to try to bite me or the nail grinder, we will just trim the nails. And for that, sometimes it's easier because the nail trimmer is pretty quick, especially if you know what you're doing. You can just quickly, trim the nails to a decent length. We will try to get them all the way to the quick if possible, but again, if the dog is exhibiting major signs of stress or trying to bite, sometimes the best we can do is just getting them to a decent length where they're not going to be in pain. But if possible, we do get them all the way to the quick. But anyway, so some dogs don't love that little light grinding, and so that's why we would then go to nail trimming. So that's kind of the two differences. I did mention earlier, sometimes a vet will purposefully quick a dog. The reason for this is a lot of times if you let the dog's nails grow out for months and months and months without trimming them, the quick will grow longer. And the reason for this is, the nail then requires more nutrients to maintain, and so the quick will grow a little bit longer. You are able, though, to get the quick to recede back to a normal length. You cannot get the quick to recede all the way into the nail bed. That is not possible, at least as far as I know, but you can at least get it to recede to a decent length. And how you do that is either you take them in for nail grinding every about 2, 3 to 4 weeks, depending on what your groomer tells you. What you want is the quick to stay exposed. That sounds really funny. But you think of this little tiny vein. If you take the nail all the way off, its protective covering, it's not going to like that. So it's going to jump back a little bit. It does take a while for it to recede. Like for example, our dog BB, I've mentioned this many times, she's our true rescue dog. She was severely neglected when she was a puppy, unfortunately. She's now in a great spot, very healthy for her size and weight. But a part of this is also her grooming was neglected, especially her nails. So she had very long nails and very long quicks when we got her. And as I grind my girls' nails every 2 weeks because I like their nails to be, nice and short. It's more comfortable for them, less noise for us. We don't hear as much clicking on our hardwoods, and it just keeps our, rented apartment a lot nicer. And so we don't have to worry about those fees and fines that sometimes landlords throw in. But over time, though, her her quicks have started to recede. And so now they're at a normal length again. So hers are always going to be just a little bit longer than Chani's. That's just the nature of her nails in particular. So we do hear hers clicking earlier than Chani's do when they are growing back out. But her quicks are now at a shorter length, even on her dew claws. And so we love that. But it did take a good, probably, a few months to 6 months before we started actually noticing a difference. So it does take a while and is a bigger time commitment. Vets are the other option if you're looking to shorten your dog's quick, but really this is only if they are very long. They won't really do this unless it is medically necessary. because there is also like a risk associated. But vets will essentially, they can purposefully quick the nail, so cut it really short. Obviously, not like so short to where it's like gonna injure your dog, but short enough to be like a more natural, quick length. And then what they'll do is they have special quick stops that are vet grade. We are not allowed to use those as groomers, but your vet can. And then they are also in a safe environment. If anything were to happen or go wrong, they can fix it right then and there. But what this does is it essentially causes a scab to form over your dog's nail, over that vein. And then as the nail grows back out to, a reasonable length, and you keep getting it trimmed, then the quick will stay to that shortened length. It won't necessarily grow all the way back out again unless you neglect your dog's paws and you allow those nails to grow back out to a ridiculous length. So those are the different types of nail trimming. Now we will go back to Salon Mary and Chani to show those in action. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the two different types of nail trimming. We have our traditional nail, what are they, cutters, clippers, whatever you want to call them. Mine are from Artero. I just got the cheapest ones off of the grooming website. All of them basically do the exact same thing. If you do have a little dog, I would recommend getting a little pair. I got these ones just off of Amazon. The other ones that I really love but I couldn't find online, but I know that they sell them, I think at PetSmart, is the Chi brand, and they're actually cat nail clippers, but they work really well for your small dogs. And the reason you want smaller nail clippers for your smaller dogs is getting in the giant hunk of metal in between their tiny toes is really difficult, and it can stress them out a little further. The other type of nail cutting is actually nail grinding. And so we use a Dremel. Mine is Ryobi, however you pronounce it. And then you can just use the sandpaper that comes with it, or I have a diamond tip on mine that is beveled to make them nice and smooth and a little bit easier, just because I use mine all the time, all day long. There are different pros and cons to each. Nail clipping generally can be done really, really quick, especially if you know what you're doing. It's also easier if you have a dog that is more feet reactive. Sometimes you can get one or two nails clipped super quick before, they kind of figure out what you're doing. But a lot of dogs don't like the pinching sensation, especially when they're on the table. Nail grinding, what it is it provides a slight vibration. We're really just filing down the tip of the nail until we get to the quick. As the person doing it, you have a little bit more control because you can see like where the quick is and stop immediately. Instead of cutting, you sometimes just have to guess and keep doing a little bit at a time until you take it all the way to the quick. So there are pros and cons about each. And like I said, a lot of dogs prefer the nail grinding over the nail trimming. And that is just because the nail trimmers or clippers, they have a little pinch on the nails, and some dogs are really kind of like nervous around that. The nail grinder, though, it's just a vibration, and usually it's the noise that gets the most dogs. It's not generally the vibrating sensation. So I just already demonstrated the nail clipping, so I can I'll demonstrate it one more time in this segment. Chani generally hates this. Come here. She's been getting her nails done every single 2 to 3 weeks. So again, we'll have this clear nail. You can kind of see where the click is. I do this enough. I do not have to really look unless they are super long and I'm taking a ton off. We're just going to take a little bit off at a time. She does not like the nail trimming. She prefers the nail grinding. These little baby steps. Come from the bottom. We'll try to get a little more off there. And I don't want to do too much because I know it's right there. All right, and then there we have gotten it down to as close to the quick as I want to go with these, just because I don't want her bleeding today. But yeah, so that is the nail trimming. Nail trimming also does leave some sharp edges. So if you have hardwood floors or like leather couches or even fabric couches you don't want scratched, or you have like a young baby or toddler that you don't want scratched, or sometimes you'll have, grandma or grandpa living with you, or your mom and dad living with you in that case, that you don't want your dog to scratch as well. So all of those are good reasons to do the nail grinding, because we can get it all the way smooth Alright, so I just went ahead and finished off those 3 nails I already trimmed for Chani because we do have a baby at home. All you're doing really is you are just gently filing the nail, going back and forth to make it nice and round until you see the click. Once you see the click, you can take like a tiny bit off more and you're not going to make them bleed or hurt. But however, you do want to be careful because a lot of dogs can get jumpy at this point because it is, they have a little bit of flesh in that vein down there that is getting exposed. So we're going to go ahead and do this last nail. You can kind of watch. Sorry, I forgot my nail grinder is very loud right now. It needs a good inside cleaning if you can't tell. Mine gets very, very dirty because, again, I'm using it all day long when I'm at the salon. You're okay, Sean. Oh, she's tired. She wants to go home. Okay, last one. Okay, you can dust it off. And we can get it to focus. There we go. You can see the click right in there. The click also, if you're doing the grinding, over time you'll feel the difference. You'll be able to feel the difference between like a nail and the quick. It's a little more spongy, the quick is. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish Chani up and we will get back to editing me to go over the rest of the nail information. All right, welcome back again. Hope you enjoyed Chani. She was getting, I know, a little anxious in that clip. She was very ready to go home to see her baby sister and her dad. It's very cute. The girls, when they're away from our little baby for an extended period of time, they get really antsy and they all want to check in on her and make sure that she's still, alive and there and okay. It's very cute. They've started to form an awesome bond together. But anyways, the last thing we're going to talk about is how often should you be trimming your dog's nails? Now this depends on the dog. Generally, we recommend every 3 to 4 weeks, about the same time you want to be bathing your dog. And the reason for this is, like human nails, your dog's nails grow out pretty quickly, and you want to keep them comfortable and nice and short. If you are trying to shorten the quick though, you want to make this a little bit, sooner. You want to do it about every 2 to 3 weeks to make sure that those nails are grinded all the way down, and to, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Mom brain happening. But to make sure that they're all the way shortened down and the quick is exposed. That's what I was going to say. And that will help to shorten those nails over time. There is one exception, and that is if you take, and this is usually we see it with our larger breeds, generally like our Labs, Goldens, and Australian Shepherds is what I see it on most often. But if you take your dog for long walks on cement, or they go to a doggy daycare and they're playing on cement all day, depending on how they walk, because some dogs walk a little different than others, some dogs naturally keep their nails grinded down. But I'm not saying, okay, take your little Shorkie or your Shih Tzu out on like a 3-mile walk every single day. That's not going to be right for their type of dog, for that type of dog. And some dogs too, they don't put the right pressure in the right places when they're walking. But some dogs do naturally grind their nails down. As a groomer, I will tell you this, especially if you're in for a full service, and nail trimming is just included. I will let you know, hey, your dog's back nails, they're naturally grinded down. I'm just going to do the front paws. Generally, too, the back paws are the ones that get grinded down more often than the front paws. Yes, and sometimes your dog can grind their nails down so short that they quick themselves. I've seen this a few times. There's a little set of corgis at my first salon I was working at and training at that they would walk on the cement so often that their nails were extremely short and they were just like bleeding all. It was not good. And so we had to tell the pet parents, we need to stop walking these on cement so often and maybe take them into the vet to see. But anyways, so that is another option or another case. If that is the case with your dog, your groomer should let you know, especially if they're a good groomer, because your dog does not then need the nail grinding specifically, and a lot of times they don't even need trimming. Maybe if they have dew claws, you'll want to get them in every 3 to 4 weeks for that. Or just in with their regular groom, depending on how, quickly their dew claw is growing out. A lot of times, like I said too, the back paws will be the ones that naturally grind down as they're walking on cement, and their front paws won't. Again, I will tell a pet parent this. Sometimes groomers do discounted rates, but sometimes they don't. It just depends on your groomer and kind of the situation. But they will talk to you about that if they see that arise. But again, generally every 3 to 4 weeks, you want to do that about when they're getting their bath. If you are stretching your baths out though, please do it every 3 to 4 weeks. Again, you don't have to necessarily get them into a groomer to do the nails. You can do them at home yourself. I know it is a little daunting and really scary at first, especially knowing that you could cause your dog to bleed. Just make sure though that you have a good quick stop at home. If you don't have that or can't afford that, you can also use baking flour. You just pack it on, hold it for about 3 seconds. It's a little hard because your dog will probably be wiggling, but it will do the same thing or have the same effect. You just don't necessarily want to use that all the time, as sometimes it can also cause infection. But in a pinch, baking flour will do the same thing. You just kind of pack it on the tip, hold it for about 3 seconds so that the bleeding has a chance to stop. Yes, so do try to trim those. If it is too dangerous or too hard at home though, that is why we have groomers. You can bring them into us. And then if even the groomer can't do it, they will recommend you to a vet. Very few dogs I have to recommend to a vet for nails. Generally, it's only if they are jumping off the table and endangering themselves, or I have tried every restraint method imaginable and they are still finding a way to bite. And again, that's just for their safety and their stress levels as well as our safety. But generally, groomers should be able to get nails done. Another thing which I didn't put on my notes is desensitization. If your dog has sensitive paws, this is usually our doodle friends, you want to touch their paws and play with them. I will do a video on desensitizing probably next month actually. But you can touch their paws, give them treats when they're acting good, teach them how to shake, or in our house we call it high five. I know some people do like a fist bump. Do something so that they associate their paws being touched with a good thing. And that will help when they go to the groomer, as we're touching their paws and their nails. They then will have a little bit of a better experience. Obviously, if your dog is being aggressive to even you when you're touching their paws or going to touch their paws, don't do that. Get in with a trainer or take them into a vet then just to have their nails trimmed in the meantime. And then get them in with a trainer to help desensitize them. But yes, that's a little bit on how to help with your dog's paws being desensitized. Again, we'll go into that in a lot of depth in another video. We'll do all sorts of grooming desensitization, and that should hopefully be next month. All right, but that is everything about dogs' nails. I'm really hoping that this video is under 30 minutes or right about. Hard to tell because I have, I think, 5 different clips I now have to stitch together, which is just fine. But yes, dogs' nails, very, very important. And unfortunately, it is one of the most neglected parts of a dog, or of a dog's grooming, I will say. But yes, anyways, enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe out there. Tell your dog I said hello and give them lots of puppy kisses for me. Bye-bye.